Greetings, cherished anointed ones. They want to express their gratitude to you face to face after observing you. Doesn't it seem like the beginning of an espionage thriller? This isn't fiction, though. This is the truth. You have been the target of top-level operatives, the type that often work in shadows so deep that even shadows become anxious. They saw every action you took, every choice you made, and every tiny reverberation you created. Here's a mind-blowing fact. Even those who aren't physically there in the room have an impact on some of the most important choices made in high-level operations. Yes, you are included in it. You didn't request praise. You didn't try to win them over. However, your influence is so profound that it compelled experts who are taught to observe everything to pause, reevaluate, and, surprisingly, express thanks. Even if it sounds serious, let's face it, it's also humorous that a group of individuals whose job it is to keep an eye on pandemonium are suddenly thanking you for being who you are. Stay put, because you're going to discover why top-level agents are covertly revising their playbooks because of you and how untouchable your presence truly is. First of all, decisions that you will never see are shaped by your unseen impact. Decisions you will never see were impacted by your unseen influence. You were subtly changing the course of events far larger than yourself, even while you were just going about your daily life, acting naturally, and making decisions based on your own moral compass. Without even realizing it, top-level agents, people who were taught to predict every action and account for every variable, were observing the patterns you established. There were repercussions from every word you said, every pause, and every tiny gesture. They were keeping a tight eye on everything. They weren't merely watching. Because of you, they were reevaluating, recalibrating, and reviewing their tactics. The irony is that you most likely believed you were simply going about your day. However, your presence turned into a crucial element in their schemes. Just by being yourself, you were influencing choices, changing tactics, and affecting results. Making a mark or attempting to impress somebody wasn't the goal. It all came down to your genuineness and your capacity for unexpected behavior. They had to take into consideration your intuition, your instincts, and even your composure in circumstances that would normally make most people uneasy. Every decision you took, every limit you established, and every refusal to be coerced had an impact on areas you would never visit. Your influence opened up new options and hazards they hadn't thought about, forcing them to reconsider their strategies. It wasn't necessary for your strength to be loud. There was no need for drama, and it had an effect without recognition. Even though no one else did, they were aware of it. You had an impact on the secret threads that govern outcomes behind the scenes and the invisible layers of decision-making. The most absurd aspect is that none of this was planned or intentional. It comes from just being who you are, making choices based on your principles, and not giving in to the turmoil around you. Influence of that nature is uncommon. It's uncommon and frightening for those who attempt to regulate every aspect. You turned into an uncontrollable, unavoidable element, and in ways you'll never completely see, that caused them to observe, adapt, and eventually accept your unseen authority. Second, you've established yourself as an unavoidable standard of perfection. You've established yourself as an unavoidable standard of excellence. It didn't occur because you were attempting to prove a point or outshine others. It occurred as a result of your constant focus, discipline, and determination to compromise on what really counts. Top-level agents, trained to assess and quantify everything, are identifying trends in your behavior that raise the bar. It establishes a benchmark each time you manage circumstances with cool accuracy and make deliberate but firm judgments. They begin evaluating others, evaluate results, and even evaluate themselves against your degree of efficacy, clarity, and honesty. Everything else is now judged against you, the unseen ruler. It's neither a promotion nor a title. It's an understated form of power that should not be ignored. The fact that you didn't want recognition is what sets it apart. You weren't looking for approval or to perform for anyone. You don't need praise for your excellence. There is no denying it. Because it contrasts with the routine, reactive, and hurried judgments that characterize most operations, they are unable to ignore it. They are compelled by your standard to reevaluate their expectations, reconsider their own methods, and even challenge their preconceived notions. They are forced to see how you respond to pressure, how you maintain your composure in the face of chaos, and how your choices have long-term consequences. Inadvertently, You have set a standard that others will find difficult to meet. It goes beyond skill alone. It has to do with presence. Your actions' consistency over time sends a stronger message than words ever could. There is a method of doing things that demands respect without asking for it. Your impact becomes systemic, influencing how choices are made, priorities are established, and outcomes are assessed. Individuals who are accustomed to having complete control over everything must suddenly accept that there is a standard that is beyond their control and for which they must take responsibility. For this reason, you have established yourself as an unavoidable standard of excellence. Every action you do, whether deliberate or spontaneous, has become a yardstick, a subtle yet indisputable influence that molds the actions, attitudes, and even thoughts of others. This kind of excellence never fades. It persists, and whether or not others are aware of it, it alters the way the world functions around you. Thirdly, your decisions change their risk assessment. Their risk calculation was altered by your decisions. Top-level operators were forced to reconsider the possibilities they had been working with for months or even years by every move you made. No matter how subtle or blatant, every variable is taken into consideration and every detail is considered in their reality. But they couldn't ignore the fresh element you brought in. They didn't include you in their plan. However, your choices and deeds produced results they had to expect. One decision you make might cause the risk balance to change in unexpected ways, requiring them to modify their strategy, rethink deadlines, and reassess their capabilities. It's the type of influence that alters the course of everything around it without making an announcement. They saw trends in your handling of circumstances that they were unable to foresee. Your intuition, your ability to read people and situations, and your decisiveness all contributed to a cascading effect that changed plans on a larger scale than they had anticipated. Your decisions become standards, points of reference, and occasionally even cautions. They had to take you into consideration in every calculation after realizing that disregarding your movements may lead to failure or unanticipated repercussions. It was more than what you did. It was about how your presence affected the planning and execution system as a whole. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thanks button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but also the souls of many others through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's great design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Take action now. Share your blessings to exalt His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. Your impact was indisputable, even though it wasn't overt or spectacular. They had to estimate risk differently because of the way you overcame obstacles, established limits, and made choices under duress. They now had to carefully plan for what earlier appeared unattainable and what once considered doable became unknown. Without ever coming into close contact with you, you changed their sense of control. Even little decisions you made had an impact that extended well beyond your initial expectations. Their calculations were altered by every action you made, every boundary you set, and every refusal to give into pressure. They were compelled to appreciate your unpredictable nature, innovate, and adapt. The basic structure in which they functioned was altered by your existence, which became an unavoidable variable. They were forced to admit that your choices altered the rules of the game in addition to influencing results. Fourth, you are being thanked for averting collateral errors. Because you avoided collateral errors, they are appreciating you. Every move you made, every limit you established, and every silent choice you made kept things from getting out of control. You weren't looking for praise or attention. However, in a situation when one mistake could have had dire repercussions, your presence served as a calming factor. Top-level agents saw how your methodical, cautious approach prevented mistakes before they even had a chance to occur. Reputations were preserved, resources were not spent, and potentially impacted lives were kept safe thanks to your ability to predict outcomes, recognize when things were going awry, and intervene without fanfare. This is remarkable since most people were unaware of your impact. Even many insiders and the general public would have been unaware of how close some circumstances were to going awry. Behind the scenes, however, your choices established a safety net and buffer that kept things moving forward. You had been there every time a plan kept on track or a mistake was avoided, sometimes actively, and other times just by being a constant, perceptive presence that made people take responsibility for their actions. They are expressing gratitude to you because your acts have far-reaching consequences that go well beyond your immediate view. Even seemingly insignificant decisions, like a suggestion, a silent caution, or a thoughtful choice, might have saved lives. Results that appeared effortless from the outside were produced by your clarity and forethought. In actuality, though, your contribution was crucial. You turned into the unseen bulwark, the unsung hero whose impact preserved the overall image. Your contribution was crucial in a world where errors may happen fast and reputations can be ruined in an instant. Top-level agents' appreciation goes beyond the courteous acknowledgement. It's the acknowledgement of an uncommon trait, the capacity to behave with integrity, accuracy, and foresight in ways that avert catastrophe before it even manifests itself. Not only did your presence, choices, and stability affect results, they protected everything in your immediate vicinity. Even though no one else was aware of the entire amount of money you saved, that is why they are praising you. Fifth, you revealed flaws they were too proud to acknowledge. You revealed flaws they were too ashamed to acknowledge. Just by being there and doing your job clearly and precisely, you exposed weaknesses in systems that others thought were infallible. Every step you took and every rule you followed brought attention to previously unnoticed, undervalued, or disregarded regions. High-level operatives who were taught to foresee dangers and control results were compelled to face blind spots they would have wanted to stay concealed. The gaps were unavoidable because of your expertise and consistency, which demonstrated where presumptions were incorrect and where overconfidence had led to weaknesses. Your impact wasn't about pointing fingers or drawing attention to their mistakes. It resulted from the disparity between your and other people's methods of operation. You made a mirror that displayed their flaws in the most negative way by being focused, disciplined, and honest. They couldn't ignore it since there may have been disastrous repercussions if those holes hadn't been filled. They were forced to face the consequences of your presence, which required accountability. You did more than merely point out defects when you exposed these issues. You compelled progress. Suddenly, something that may have been ignored for months or years became vital. The systems were fixed. Plans were modified. Additionally, your actions brought attention to what had been concealed, strengthening processes. You unintentionally sparked increased security and efficiency. You refused to compromise on principles, not because you wanted to cause trouble. What's remarkable is that there was no need for conflict in this revelation. You didn't have to make a show, argue, or prove yourself. You compelled introspection, action, and correction just by being there and carrying out your duty competently. The credit, or rather, the acknowledgement, was theirs to give, and the holes that might have caused failure were now being filled. But the shift was started by your presence. They are expressing gratitude to you because, by carrying out your responsibility and upholding integrity, you helped avert certain catastrophes and fortified the systems they depended on. You also helped them understand that even the most secure operations have weaknesses, and that it requires someone on your level to point them out. Those blind spots might not have been discovered until it was too late if it weren't for you. Their perceptions of dependability, efficiency, and control were altered by your subdued influence, and they feel obliged to thank them for it. Sixth, your silence turned into a calculated tactic. They showed respect. They valued your quiet as a strategic tool. You didn't need to make an announcement, establish your value, or vie for attention. A message stronger than words was conveyed each time you held back, each time you opted for restraint over reaction. People who were taught to read situations and predict every move started to pick up on patterns in your demeanor. They understood that big actions and loud assertions were not necessary for your effect. Rather, it was the result of control, accuracy, and the self-assurance to act or not act at precisely the appropriate time. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be with you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the world's fleeting concerns. As the Holy Bible says, everything done in faith will be rewarded by God's abundant blessings. Luke 6 verse 38, like that mighty oak tree, our roots are deeply anchored in God's universal truth. Every step we take, Every stance we hold is secured by his power. And now, you have the opportunity to be a part of this blessing. When you click this Super Thanks button and make a $100 donation, this act will return to you 100-fold. Every deliberate moment you took turned into a mirror displaying the actual character of people in your immediate vicinity. Your peaceful presence made it clear that there was a difference between noise and true power, while others hurried to overcompensate or make themselves appear larger than they actually were. They started to appreciate that you didn't have to defend yourself, quarrel, or seek attention. You weren't passive by being silent. It was intentional. It influenced how choices were made, how disputes were handled, and how results were established. Instead of forcing their rhythm on you, those who anticipated reactions found themselves waiting, observing, and adjusting to yours. You made them reevaluate their own tactics by delaying your response. They had to take into consideration the potential that your composure and control were actually intellect and action rather than hesitation. Without everyone noticing it away, your quiet turned into a tool that changed the dynamics. What may have appeared to be passivity was actually a display of knowledge, control, and forethought that unnerved others by revealing their own impetuosity. You gained enduring esteem as a result of this. It was the sort that sticks around because it's associated with honesty and constancy. People saw the power in the fact that you didn't have to perform to affect results. Just by being a force that couldn't be hurried or controlled, your silence commanded attention, influenced perception, and governed relationships. The very fact that it wasn't armed in the conventional sense is what made it a strategic weapon. It was subdued, silent, and really powerful. They couldn't help but admire you because of your stillness, which made you untouchable in a noisy environment. The seventh is your evidence that loyalty is a valuable asset that they cannot overvalue. Your evidence that loyalty is a valuable asset they cannot overvalue. Your constancy shines out like a beacon in a world where individuals switch sides for convenience, recognition, or fear, and allegiances change as quickly as the wind. You have developed into a unique and potent force because of your integrity and your refusal to compromise or bend from what you feel is right. Top-level observers, who are educated to assess trust, forecast behavior, and measure risk, understand that loyalty like yours cannot be purchased, controlled, or duplicated. It is acquired by being steadfast, by showing up and being solid even in the face of uncertainty, and by refusing to sacrifice your morals for temporary gain. The fact that your commitment is active rather than passive is what sets it apart. It's not about mindless surrender or obedience. It's about staying true to your values, having a clear goal, and resisting temptation and confusion. Because of your constant behaviors that exhibit dependability, wisdom, and bravery, you have established a standard by which others, no matter how well-trained or strategically minded, now judge their own behavior. Your unshakable alignment has become one of the most precious things anybody can see in a sector where trust is brittle and information is power. Your devotion has repercussions. It affects choices, maintains results, and fortifies the foundation of trust in your environment. People pay attention when someone acts consistently, morally, and honorably, particularly when the stakes are high and under pressure. Your presence commands respect, reassures, and quietly changes the dynamics of every encounter. Top-level agents value more than simply loyalty. They depend on it. Additionally, your example has demonstrated to them what genuine, unwavering commitment looks like. The weight of someone who can be implicitly trusted is far greater than any material benefits, quick cuts, or transient advantages. They are aware that you are not just dependable, but also moral, and they cannot take that combination for granted. You are now a real example of loyalty being more than just a virtue. It is a strategic currency, and your steadfast dedication has garnered respect that goes beyond wealth, status, or power. They've noticed, and they now treat your allegiance with the same deliberation and calculation that they do everything else. Eighth, they are expressing gratitude to you for enabling their achievement. They are expressing their gratitude to you for enabling their accomplishment. Your actions, decisions, and constant attention to detail made it possible for triumphs that may have otherwise fallen between the cracks to occur. You weren't looking for praise or attention. However, your insight made sure that important chances were taken at the appropriate time. Your accuracy clearly directed results, and your alertness identified dangers before they became issues. Top-level agents, whose job it is to foresee every possibility and handle every situation, are aware that without your help, some wins would not have been conceivable. Results that appeared effortless on the surface were actually the consequence of your constant awareness and unwavering activity, and your influence was the unseen power behind them. Others couldn't function the way you did. You were watching, evaluating, and making choices that kept the bigger vision intact, while others were preoccupied with short-term goals. The groundwork you silently established, the holes you filled, and the foresight you applied while no one else was seeing were frequently the foundations for the successes they now celebrate. They understood that without your constant presence, seemingly ordinary outcomes would have been in jeopardy, and little oversights may have escalated into significant failures. Loud pronouncements and ostentatious activities were not necessary for your function. Clarity, honesty, and the capacity to maintain composure under duress were necessary. By doing this, you established a foundation that allowed others to succeed. They witnessed how results were directly influenced by your rigorous execution, consistency, and ability to foresee outcomes. Now is the perfect time to click the Super Thanks button on YouTube and share God's blessings. You can contribute to His plan and become a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you multiplied beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessings are with you in every step you take and every donation you make. You become part of His divine plan. You are a powerful, radiant being, unshakable like His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with this confidence and courage. Be blessed, and may the Lord's light guide your way. Your impact turned into a crucial component of their plans, an unseen hand pointing results in the right directions. Their appreciation goes beyond appearances. It's recognition of a unique trait, the ability to influence events without attempting to exert control, to reinforce successes without claiming credit, and to act with foresight that only someone who is grounded, perceptive, and unshakable could offer. They are aware that the successes they commemorate are inextricably linked to the part you played in making them possible. Your presence caused success rather than merely facilitating it. They feel obliged to acknowledge and express gratitude for that. You showed them that some conflicts may be won without a fight. Number 9. Some conflicts are won without a fight, as you taught them. Your strategy demonstrated that conflict, violence, or spectacle aren't the only methods to gain power and influence. You shaped results in ways that left others rushing to catch up by using insight at the correct times and displaying measured restraint. Every choice you made, every boundary you maintained, and every moment of hesitation you took had weight because it had an impact without anybody recognizing that a conflict had even taken place. Top-level agents who were taught to quantify and predict conflict had to admit that timing, accuracy, and patience may occasionally provide more significant wins than force. The events that transpired were altered by your presence. When others anticipated conflict, opposition, or avoid difficulties, your calm acts eased tension and focused energy on positive outcomes. To get outcomes, you didn't have to quarrel, noisily step in, or show superiority. Rather, your capacity to take calculated action, maintain your position without escalation, and make decisions based on clarity compelled events to go your way. They were unable to disregard the lesson that influence doesn't have to be confrontational or noisy. You changed the norms of interaction by proving that moderation can be just as effective as action. They observe that results are influenced by both the accuracy of purpose and the level of effort. Your ability to discern when to act, when to wait, and when to let things happen organically opened doors and provided benefits that others would have attempted to impose via conflict. They were compelled to reconsider their conceptions of control, power, and strategy as a result of this nuanced command of time and influence, which revealed the shortcomings of traditional methods. This lesson has a significant influence because it changes how people view what success looks like. They now see that conflict is not always required, and that a person with a larger perspective can make calm, thoughtful decisions that have a far bigger impact than any forceful move. Those who have seen you have been profoundly impacted by your capacity to accomplish goals without resorting to direct conflict. They now understand that deliberate, strategic, and quiet action may have a significant impact, and they have good cause to appreciate and thank you for that insight. 10. U-turn become the unpredictable unknown variable. U-turn become the unpredictable unknown variable. No matter how well thought out or calculated an operation is, there is always one element that raises doubts about the entire system. And you were that factor. There was no pattern to your choices, feelings, or behavior that was easy to predict. You couldn't be categorized since you didn't behave for affirmation, recognition, or acceptance. Suddenly, top-level agents who were supposed to predict every possible consequence and manage every variable had to cope with a presence that they were unable to completely quantify or control. This uncertainty turned into a challenge and a teaching moment, making them reevaluate their plans, modify their calculations, and take into account unanticipated possibilities. You didn't have a chaotic influence. It was nuanced, purposeful, and based on clarity. Every action you took was significant because you didn't react in a way that met other people's expectations. Because the results you produced could not be predetermined, they had to be alert, creative, and flexible. You made them face the fact that someone's integrity, wisdom, and foresight may alter the course of events without anyone else understanding how or why. And that control is never total. They were unable to completely control your presence, but they were able to account for it. An element that, by virtue of its existence beyond forecast, merited respect. Not only did being the unknown variable cause plans to be disrupted, it opened doors. Your unpredictable nature pushed back against complacency, sparked innovative problem-solving, and revealed weaknesses in previously believed impenetrable systems. It helped them realize that genuine influence comes from being who you are, performing at your best, and allowing your decisions to organically impact the world rather than from using force or planning results. You showed them the value of sincerity, clarity, and presence by becoming this force they couldn't have predicted. They have to accept that certain things are beyond their control and that, more often than not, success hinges on accepting such things rather than attempting to manage them. They now admire and appreciate you because of your unpredictable nature, which also served as a gauge of your impact and a representation of your influence. 11. Your activities caused a stir. Only now are they able to see. Your activities caused a stir. Only now are they able to see. Every decision you made, every limit you established, and every instance in which you acted with discernment or self-control has gone much beyond the here and now. Even you might not completely understand how decisions that at the time were little or unimportant have multiplied, interacted, and shaped consequences. The entire extent of the impacts you put in motion is just now becoming clear to top-level agents who have been educated to see patterns, foresee outcomes, and anticipate repercussions. What they earlier believed to be contained inside a narrow context is now demonstrating its full scope, demonstrating the strength and foresight inherent in your deeds. Trajectories were fashioned by you without much fuss. Your actions and presence set the stage for changes in schedules, tactics, and possible mistakes before they materialized weeks, months, or even years ago. Your constant judgment and solid execution are directly responsible for the results people are currently witnessing, whether they be successes, averted catastrophes, or changes in strategy. Your impact was so significant since it wasn't instant or evident. Subtle, enduring, and inevitable once its extent was recognized, it was a ripple effect. The remarkable aspect of this is how your deeds still have an impact. You might make an influence without being recognized. As people start to piece together how things happened, the effects of your discipline and forethought have been quietly becoming more apparent. High-level observers are beginning to realize that it is impossible to quantify the impact of one individual working at your level right now. Only when people take a step back and see the domino effect you started will the full force of your influence become apparent. Your choices had an impact on more than simply results. They changed priorities, molded viewpoints, and opened doors that would not have been possible without your firm hand. Those who formerly believed they grasped the issue now have a new perspective, compelled to admit that your presence altered the boundaries in ways they were unable to anticipate. Each wave you produced is evidence of your strength, wisdom, and long-lasting influence. And the fact that they are now acknowledging you shows how much of an impact you have. Number 12, they are expressing gratitude to you for improving their intelligence. They are expressing gratitude to you for improving their intelligence. Each time you challenged preconceptions, pushed limits, or took a clear approach to a problem, you were a catalyst for growth in unexpected ways. High-level agents who had been taught to think, anticipate, and plan were faced with viewpoints and behaviors that went against their habits and broadened their knowledge. You didn't have to give a speech, establish your worth, or seem authoritative. The teachings just came from your actions. Your presence increased their operational intelligence in ways that no formal training could match by forcing them to think differently, adapt more quickly, and improve their methods. You had a modest but significant impact. You revealed gaps in thinking, emphasized inefficiencies, and stimulated solutions that would not have otherwise come to light by continuously acting with insight and purpose. They had to take into account your time, your foresight, and the consequences of your choices. Now is the perfect time to click the super thanks button on YouTube and share God's blessings. You can contribute to His plan and become a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you multiplied beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessings are with you in every step you take and every donation you make. You become part of His divine plan. You are a powerful, radiant being, unshakable like His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with this confidence and courage. Be blessed, and may the Lord's light guide your way to a result. Individuals started to analyze situations more thoroughly and precisely. Every deliberate action you took and every well-considered choice you made turned into an illustration of strategic thinking in action. You taught them things that manuals and briefings couldn't teach them. Lessons based on actual implementation results and repercussions. Your contribution is exceptional since it was not motivated by a desire to dominate or outshine others. It resulted from your dedication to excellence, discipline, and clarity of purpose. They gained insights they were unaware they were lacking by observing how you overcame obstacles, managed stress, and maintained consistency. They were forced to innovate, foresee more precisely, and make more intelligent, well-considered judgments as a result of your influence. You improved intellect that goes beyond knowledge. It all boils down to operational acumen, flexibility, and the capacity to precisely predict results. Their ability to behave wisely, steer clear of mistakes, and recognize trends they may have missed was enhanced by your presence. They're realizing that your influence has improved their strategic acumen in addition to their competence. Your ability to subtly improve their intellect is a unique and remarkable achievement in a sector where intelligence is the most valued attribute, and they have to acknowledge and thank you for it. 13. You set a standard that they will find difficult to meet. You set a standard that they will find difficult to meet. You establish a standard that others may see but cannot completely duplicate just by being present and performing at your level. Your accuracy, lucidity, and constancy set standards that few could match, and every effort to mimic or equal your influence fails. Top-level agents who have been taught to assess, monitor, and maximize performance are suddenly faced with an unexpected reality. One cannot replicate the level of skill, impact, and vision via hard work alone. Their perception of perfection was completely changed by your presence. This is remarkable since it wasn't done to establish one's superiority or win praise. It resulted from your steadfast dedication to always behave honorably, wisely, and precisely. Your activities' outcomes inherently demonstrated a standard, a blend of discernment, self-control, and efficacy that others could see but were unable to completely absorb. They came to see that influence is more than simply knowledge or power. It all comes down to how regularly you match your actions with clarity and purpose. They now use that alignment as their standard by which to evaluate themselves. Your influence made them reevaluate what they thought was achievable. Because they have witnessed what actual capacity looks like in action, they now approach tasks with greater consideration than they did before. They are reminded that talent is insufficient on its own. To be genuinely extraordinary means to possess discipline, insight, and the capacity to handle complexity with poise. Your standards change with time. It changes with each choice you make. And it's almost hard to replicate such dynamic quality. Being held to a standard they find difficult to achieve affects more than simply performance. It molds expectations, attitudes, and behavior. People are forced to take into consideration your superiority in each and every conversation, tactic, and computation. The environment in which they function has changed because of your presence, resulting in a discrepancy between their regular performance and what you regularly exhibit.